Okay folks, welcome to Oregon Hot Rod. In this video you're going to get a lot of jibber jabber. I'm going to talk a lot about how to assemble an engine. One of the main parts of this video is going to be wear patterns, and that's a very important part about assembling an engine. You're also going to get the layout of the crankshaft, how it's laid out, also on the clutch pack, how it's laid out, and some other things in there, just the basics before getting the cases put together. So keep watching, keep tuning in, keep liking Oregon Hot Rod, and let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, that's right. Huh.
Got her done.
Hold that up. I need to grab that.
Okay, so I'm going to get this motor all ground down here. I'm going to start out, I'm just going to do a little roughing with the a die grinder, and then I'll do the finishing up with a file to get everything nice and smooth and everything else. So let's get started on this thing. Okay, so this here is the welded up spot, all drilled, tapped, and ready to assemble. Okay, so back at her here. I think I got most of my stuff pretty well figured out here on this PW engine. I do have a bit of concerns, and a lot of it is to do with the there's a whole lot of washers and clips and things like that that I got to figure out where they go. Let me show you here. See, we've got all this stuff down here that I need to figure out where all this goes. So you know, I did order a oil pump block off kit. Hopefully I get that here in the next day or two. But today I'm going to try and figure out where most all this stuff goes. I think I'm just going to do a pre-trial assembly of the crank, and using the old crank before I put the new one in, and see if I can kind of figure out where all this stuff is supposed to bolt up to and stuff. Usually I can do pretty good at this, but when it comes down to these washers and stuff, they're pretty critical because, you know, basically they're keep everything good and tight. And so I do have an assembly diagrams here and stuff, and so we'll start here. We'll start with the crankshaft one here and see what I can come up with. I think I've got pretty much everything all figured out here to the most part. I did have to go get some more parts, so it kind of delayed everything a bit. Couple of quick things here. So I did get the oil pump, oil injection pump elimination kit. Ordered that online. It was, I don't know, what was it, $30 I think. So got that. I'm going to put that in today. Got my bearings. I had some bearings that I need to get. One of the bearings in the case for the transmission, I wanted to replace it because it was a little bit loose. figured out kind of where all my little parts go and stuff here. Got everything laid out. I got my cases here. I've got my external parts are all over here. My cylinder, my cases are here, and these here are all the other parts to go in here. Now I made up these items here. These are there to help push the bearings onto the crankshaft and stuff, because all they are is just I think this is 1.5 inch pipe and the other is 1 inch, just regular old water pipe, drain pipe type stuff, just good steel pipe. So first things first, I want to kind of lay things out here, kind of what I figured out here with the crankshaft back on. But I think the gist of this crankshaft basically is right like this. Okay, one thing I want to take time to explain here, in assembling anything, I don't care what it is, what I'm always watching for is wear patterns, because that tells you what direction like a washer went in and stuff like that. And sometimes that can be extremely critical, because you can have a washer that's thinner or thicker in places, or it goes in a certain direction, and if you don't have those wear patterns figured out, then you're going to have some major problems. One of the things that I ran into on this crankshaft is there's a little groove right here on the crankshaft. In that groove goes an oil seal. And if you don't have that oil seal in there properly and everything put up against it, then you're going to lose pressure in there, you're going to have leakage, all kinds of different stuff. So you got to watch out for these little tiny things like that. They're just stupid little things, but they matter. And also your ridges here, the shape that they're in, are they straight up, are they angled, things like that. Those are critical assembly points that you need to watch for. As well as things like this. I was telling you earlier, there's that oil seal. Well, this piece here goes up against that oil seal. Now on one side of this, you'll see, I don't know if you can see it real well or not, but you'll see that it's real sharp on its edge. But if you turn it around, you'll see that it's beveled. That beveled side goes up against the O-ring and stuff. That's what's going to seal it. If you put this sharp side out here, that's going to squash the O-ring and not cause it to seal and cause everything to be off on you. So you want to make sure you get that in the right direction. Also, on these gears, if you look at them, you can see a couple different things here. On this side of this plate, it seems pretty smooth. However, on this side, you see all these little notches on there and stuff. What that is that's wear patterns from the gear. So the gear is telling us that it goes up against this plate on this side, okay? And when you're assembling it, this gear is going to wind up going in first, and then this plate on the outside of it. Also, you can see inside the gear, there's a keyway right here that slides in there. So you want to make sure you get that keyway in there and on the slot. Also, on the crankshaft, there's a slot for that keyway to set into. So you want to be there. Also on the other side, there's another keyway. But now these are a different type. This here's a half moon keyway, and this here is just a square keyway. So there's different types here that you got to watch out for, just like there's different types of C-clips and all that kind of stuff. So those are critical sometimes to an engine assembly. So once again, on this here piece here, you got a beveled side and you have a square side here. So you got to watch and see which side goes where. On this assembly here. So yeah, that's correct. When you put it all together, you'll see you have this the collar with the bevel goes in here. Then you have your plate that goes on there. This plate adds thickness to this portion here. The gear goes in here, right? Bevel side in, like I said. Boom. Then you wind up with a nice flat surface here on the outside. And so then your washer goes on here. Now this here, if you'll notice, this washer is a beveled washer. So what does that tell you? The bevel probably goes up against the gear. But if you look even closer on the gear and on the wear pattern on the gear, I don't know if you can see this or not, but you'll see a ring on the gear out here. And this washer fits perfectly to that wear pattern. And so that tells me, bam, that's where that washer went. Then in the directions here, okay, so in the assembly here, this is very confusing stuff. But this here is that little, the round piece there. Shows the crankshaft here with the keyway going into it. You have your gears here that go on there. Then you have two washers that go on here. You have the beveled washer, then your flat washer, and then your shouldered nut. So got to watch those things in the video, or not in the videos, but in the directions and stuff like that, because man, sometimes this stuff gets really confusing, especially in a deal like this where I didn't disassemble the engine and I'm having to put it all back together. I have to be extra careful and extra diligent to watch absolutely every little piece to make sure I'm putting it in the right direction, and that I'm looking at all the wear patterns, how they're assembled, following the directions, and getting this thing put back together. So let's go ahead and move on, and I'll start putting the rest of these pieces to the outside here. Now that I'm thinking about it, I need to put in this bearing here. This one's a Nichi, which is a high-end Japanese bearing. The one that came out of it was a NSK. Both are good quality bearings. Yamaha wanted $30 for the bearing. I bought this one for less than $4 at McGuire Bearing Supply House in my town. I found out with a lot of bearings, if you're buying lots of bearings, these roller bearings or any kind of bearings like this, ball bearings, if you can take the number, you can find the number on the side of a bearing. On the edges of the bearing, out here on this outer lip, there'll be a make and a number of the bearing. And you can go to a bearing supply house and get the bearings for way less than what you would normally pay. Now when I took this bearing out, this bearing just slides over the shaft and then it presses into the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide it over. I'm just using a little wood block here to punch this down in here. Okay. And there is the bearing, all stalled and ready to assemble. All right, thanks for watching Oregon Hot Rod here. Next video, we're going to try and get I'm going to show you the rest of the assembly on the engine here, the cases being put together and all the other peripherals and stuff. And then hopefully we'll get to putting it in this little PW80 AMAX here. And probably have to do another video on getting it running. But anyway, if you like the videos, please subscribe, hit the notification, hit that like button, and keep supporting Oregon Hot Rod. Thank you very much for being here. We'll see you next time.